Tell me, how many times have you had to sit and wait and wait and wait and then wait some more for something to be done, for someone to arrive, for a person to call right back, for anything to happen? Anyone ever have to wait at a doctor's office for any length of time? How about for a delivery man that promised to be there between 8 and 10? A repairman who said he'd be there before lunch? At a government office? One of my favorites, on the phone with an insurance company. Or just sitting in horrible freeway traffic. Now let me ask you this. With all the waiting we are required to do, how many of you are good at waiting and actually like it? Yeah. Yes? Oh, I don't mind. I like sitting here growing old, waiting for you to call back. Why, I have nothing else better to do than to sit and wait for you. I don't have a life. Or one of my favorites, and I have nothing else I'd rather be doing than sitting here looking at the window, the clock, the window, the clock, the window, the clock, waiting for you to arrive. Realistically speaking, I can imagine that there are very few people who would say that they like to wait, especially if you are waiting for something that is very important to you and something you would like to take place right now, or at the very least, sooner, if not later. The waiting gets even harder yet when what you are waiting for is something especially important, of major significance to you, your life, and how you lead it, of significance to you, your friends, your family, your community, your church. Waiting for something to happen. How about waiting for something to change for the better? Have you ever been in a situation where you are just so tired, you are so mired down, you are so just overwhelmed by what it is, and you know it's going to get better, you just have to wait through it? Well, let's talk about that for a moment. How many people here have ever looked at the world as it is today? Looked at our world, our nation, our community. How many of us have looked at the condition of our world, the society we currently live in, and wondered how long it will be, if ever, until things change for the better? For instance, the violence in our world with the horrible epidemic of school shootings that have taken place. So many lives lost, so many children traumatized who may never overcome that experience. My own Altaloma High School was locked down for a few hours by a threat just this past week. That was far too close for home. The opioid crisis that has just destroyed so many individuals, families, and their lives. As soon as we manage to get control of one drug situation, a new one develops. And look at the devastation it's wreaking upon us. And what about the thousands of people who are trying to get into our nation, who are fleeing a horrible situation at home and trying to get across our borders, and we're trying to decide how are we already going to make room for them, when it seems there's hardly room for us as it is? All of these things going on, one after another. With examples like this, how many of you have listened to the news, watched it on TV, read it in the newspaper, looked at it on your computer screen, and you have dreamed, you have yearned, you have craved, you have hungered, me and my thesaurus, you have desired, you have wished for, you have hoped. And that's our key word for today's sermon. You have hoped that something would happen, that something would take place that would turn situations around and make our world a better place to live in. if you have ever thought about this, then you may find it kind of amazing that you have a lot in common with God's people who lived thousands of years ago. Because they too looked at the world they lived in and all the problems they had. Evil and wickedness often ran amok among them. There was domination by foreign nations who came through and conquered and pillaged their nation one after another. There were good kings followed by bad kings, followed by bad kings, followed by good kings, and famines and pestilence that made their very survival a question. And during all this time, what did they do? But they hoped and they prayed, and they hoped and they prayed that God the Almighty, God the Father, God the Creator would intervene and would bring about changes, transformations, improvements, revisions, whatever word you want to use of it, so that the world would be a better place. They hoped that God would bring about change and make this world, our world, a better place to live in. Do you know the wording I really like? I found in my research. The people of long ago hoped that this could be the kind of world that God originally intended it to be. Isn't that a great phrase? Isn't that something? That each night as we enter into our time of prayer, each time we turn to the Lord, if only this could be the kind of world that God originally intended it to be. And so they hoped and they prayed that something would happen. And they waited and waited and waited. There was an answer, though, for them. After waiting hundreds, if not thousands of years, Jesus the Christ came to earth. And that was an incredible experience. And change began to happen as he grew up and began his ministry. I like to think that Jesus was like that lighter that starts a flame, and that Jesus knew the situation, that the world was ready for change, was ripe for change, and he came and he set the people's lives afire, and those lives just whoosh, just started coming up, and change happened everywhere, and people came together, and people were healed, and people loved, and people cared, and people reached out, and marvelous things happened during his ministry. And the world began to change. It was like that little flame became a roaring fire that just went everywhere. But have you thought that perhaps those flames have gone out lately? That the wonderful changes that were being brought by the Christian faith, the Christian church, in bringing our world together has perhaps died down to the point where we are no longer a roaring fire, but more just some embers glowing. I've come to think that way at times, and I don't like that because I'm an optimistic person. I like to see the better side. But in the last week, God keeps pointing out to me a crisis in our area, in our lives, in our world. And he keeps pointing out that we have got to do something because his people are hurting. His people are in need. And it has to do with the homeless situation that pervades everywhere we go. Homeless situation that wherever you turn, it's there. This past week, Susan and I got away for a few days. We went to Las Vegas, one of our getaway spots. To tell you the truth, I hope to kind of leave our homeless situation that's camped out on the front of our property over here behind me. I kind of wanted to leave all those concerns about all the people I see on the streets here behind. It was waiting there when we got there. We went to a 99-cent store to pick up a few things that we needed while we were there, and in the parking lot were several homeless people. Well, let's see, I'm getting ahead of myself. How shall I say this? What we found was that there were people in need wherever we went. Now, in line with this, I found this little clip from a movie that I saw that I want to tie in here, and then I want to tell you about the homeless people that we encountered. And so, Norm, you have a story that you're going to show in just a moment. I know I'm rambling, but God put this sermon upon me and made me change this week what I was working on. There's this movie, Tom Hanks. How many people know who Tom Hanks is? We got this. How many saw the movie Terminal? Anybody? In the movie Terminal, Tom Hanks is a foreign national. He has flown from his country to the United States on a special mission. But while he was in the air, there was a coup in his nation. A civil war broke out, and his government was overthrown. And so when he gets here, his passport and visa are no longer valid because his country no longer exists. So they won't let him out of the international terminal because he has no passport to get out. But they also won't let him fly home because of the civil war going on, there is a war going on and no flights are going back in. And so he's stuck in the international terminal for days, if not weeks. And eventually, he runs out of money. He's growing hungry. He's bathing in the bathroom, trying to stay clean, and finds himself homeless. And this is what he does to survive. Norm, do we have our clip?
Flight 1520 for Zurich will depart from gate 33A.
Mr. Navarsky.
Please follow me.
While you were in the air, there was a military coup in your country.
The Republic of Krakosia is under new leadership.
Krakosia? I don't think he gets it.
Where do I buy the Nike shoes?
I'm gonna need the passport also.
Oh, okay.
No, Mr. Navorsky.
Beyond those doors is American soil. You are not to leave this building.
There's a man walking around the terminal in a bathrobe.
I think it's CIA.
You don't know what the hell you're talking about. That guy doesn't even speak English.
I help you?
Do you live nearby?
Yes. Gate 67.
Because we are very particular about punctuality. Did you say gate 67?
We don't play for cash. We play for unclaimed items from the lost and found.
She's a wild stallion. You help me to win her heart and you'll never go hungry again.
Officer, my friends say you are a stallion.
What?
Like a horse.
Stand behind the yellow line.
Oppa, this belong you.
Thanks.
We headed for home?
No, I am delayed long time.
You are the kind of woman who can get any guy she wants. Why Victor Navorsky?
That's something a guy like you could never understand.
I did not communicate with Norm well on what the one would be. I'll just have to explain it. Thank you. So, okay, my goof. I thought I had a different one. What happens is that he's locked inside the airport, but he finds out that they have those little push carts for the luggage, and that when you put the luggage cart back in, you get a quarter every time you return it. And so he starts running around the entire terminal, yes, picking up all the carts, rushing through to get money, and then he takes all his quarters and runs up to the Burger King and just throws the quarters down where he can finally get food. And he finds this way that he can survive, and it's this a clever way, shall we say, of him trying to get by. And it was funny in the movie. But when I was in Las Vegas, that's what the homeless were doing to survive. At the 99-cent store, they have their carts locked up. And in order to get one, you have to put a quarter in to take the cart. You go in and you shop. You take your groceries to your car. When you push the cart back in, you get your quarter back. So the homeless people lined up at the door and said, "Can we help you to your car? Can we walk with you to your car? Can we help you unload the groceries? And then can we take the basket back?" And then they'd get a quarter. And they'd get in line, there'd be 4 or 5 of them, and they would get there, and they would be able to, over the course of 2 or 3 hours, get $4 or $5. And then they could go into the 99-cent store and get food to eat. The hundreds of people coming out of that store were preparing for Thanksgiving feast, but the homeless people were out there trying to get quarters to make do. It just broke my heart. Then I also, because I'm testifying, I'm sorry, this is so different for me. So we're driving back to our hotel. There's a family crossing the street. Have you ever seen a homeless family? The father was walking. He had his rolling suitcase with their stuff on top. Mom was in back with a rolling suitcase. And in between was this little 4 or 5-year-old girl with long red curly hair. She was carrying a little case. She had some sort of little pet, you know, the plastic cases with the shaving in it. We're not sure what she had. And there they were, in the rain coming down with the snow on the mountains, trying to find some place to shelter their family. Our church does an incredible amount for the homeless. We are a great beacon in this area. But it is my hope that we are going to begin to pray in the coming year for ways that we can do something more. This situation in our community has got to be epidemic, and there has got to be a way. Now, the people of Israel long ago prayed to God fervently, daily, for days, weeks, months, years. Lord, find an answer for us. And I want us to begin to do that through this whole Advent season. What can we do, Lord, to help with this situation? What can we do to get these people off of our property and into a proper home? What can we do to find a way to give them back their lives? I hope there is a way. I believe there is a way through Jesus. We're just not sure what it is yet. But I am offering it as a challenge that we start hoping that we can do even more, that we start praying that we can find another way, that we can do everything we can to make a difference so that everyone celebrates Thanksgiving and everyone celebrates Christmas. Amen.